Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of College and Career Coffee Chats with Delicia. I'm your host, Delicia Larcon, your resident hype Tia, or your fellowship fairy godmother. However you would like to describe me as, I'm here for you. This is another episode of interviews and guest speakers coming in to chat with me about being a first generation, how to navigate imposter syndrome, how to navigate the world today in the work environment, the application process, the undergraduate admissions, and the graduate admissions process. We're here together to chat about it, to peel back the layers, to peel back the curtain behind what happens in higher education, to really provide the skills and the tools necessary to succeed in whatever that goal is for you. So make sure you have your coffee, your energy drink, or tea, whatever you want to listen in on this conversation between my guests, my colleagues, and my friends. And make sure you stay tuned so you can get access to all the free goodies and the gifts that I have created for you as it relates to training, about scholarships, about resume writing, about cover letter, anything that you need in the process. I've created some gifts for you so you can download those instantly and have access to the workbooks and the trainings. And stay tuned if you would like to join the Facebook group and the community to connect with everyone. So, without further ado, let's listen in on our guests and our conversations. Cheers! All right, welcome back everyone to another episode of College and Career Coffee Chats. Today, I'm really excited. I have Emily Lara here with me. I'm going to introduce her and give her a little background as to who she is, and then we're going to chat all things her journey as a student and into a young professional. And we're going to also change things up a little bit today. We're going to add a little career coaching resume review mini session so you all can learn from Emily's experience and learn from her questions and kind of learn from each other as to how you go through like the resume writing and review process, because we're always constantly editing the resumes. Mm-hmm. So Emily Lara is a first generation Mexican-American student who was born and raised in Oregon. She graduated from George Fox University in December of 2019 with a bachelor's in psychology, a French minor, as well as a criminal justice minor. She enjoys traveling and has been able to study abroad in places like France, Thailand, and Cambodia. She has a passion to ensure equality, fairness, and justice for underrepresented populations. She pursued this passion by obtaining a job opportunity as an immigration paralegal, which happens to be where she had previously interned, and she is currently studying to take the LSAT and hopes to become a criminal defense and immigration attorney to continuing pursuing her passion and professional goals. So without further ado, let's cheers our coffee, Emily.
Yes, cheers.
Cheers. She has some iced coffee today. I have some regular brewed.
Gotta go pick up my caramel macchiato.
Oh, so good. Love me a good caramel macchiato.
Yes.
Yes. So for you all listening, Emily and I met through a Facebook group online for first generation students, and we connected over the summer, and we've been going back and forth as to when should we connect again. And then I started a podcast, so we're like, oh, let's do it. Let's do a recording. So I'm really excited to share her story with us because it's a phenomenal story, and of course highlight some Latinas.
Yeah, for sure. Been a long time.
Yes. So how would you define first generation outside of the textbook definition? I know we chatted a little bit offline about it and it's in your bio. So how would you expand on that?
Yeah. So for me, when I hear first generation, I mean, the typical definition is you're the first one to go to school in your family. None of your other family members, immediate family, I would say, has gone to pursue higher education or has obtained their bachelor's or just a degree in general. I think the way I think I would do it, define it more as like a character, like with characteristics of the individual who is considering themselves a first generation student. So I think it's someone who has a lot of perseverance, is very determined to find that path towards achieving getting a degree because that path wasn't set for you previously. Typically, it tends to be first generation students tend to be the child of parents of immigrants. For example, me, my parents are from Mexico. They did not go to school. So I consider myself a first generation student, and I also see myself as a role model for my little cousins, my brother, so they could also pursue that and have like an example. So I was kind of like a little guinea pig of the
Yes.
family, I guess. So sometimes we're the guinea pigs of the family.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely someone who's ambitious and will fight till the end. Even though you don't know what you're doing, you'll find a way to figure it out. So I guess it's like everywhere, but characteristic wise, I see it more like that with different characteristics of someone.
Yes. I love that piece of figuring it out, right? We are guinea pigs in many
Hmm.
ways, and we have to figure it out and find an answer no matter what an obstacle might look like. Um, and how did that kind of help you navigate college and choosing a major and figuring
Hmm.
out life decisions when we kind of have to navigate it on our own?
Yeah, so I mean, in high school, I did IB classes, so it wasn't
Okay.
until like junior year where I was set on psychology. So I took IB Psych, and I was just like, wow, this is really cool. I can literally apply this material anywhere I go, and it just helps me mentally as well, which is really cool. So that's where I fell in love with psychology, and I was like, I think that's what I'm going to do in college. And so I did. I started with my bachelor's in psychology, and there were times where I was questioning it. I think everyone will question their major at least once in college. It's normal. And I was really debating of switching to social work, but I was like, yeah, no. So I stuck with my psychology degree. But I mean, getting there wasn't easy. Getting into school wasn't easy since I was the first one. I basically just leaned on other like family friends, I would say, who had kid or children who actually did go to school. So I just had to kind of ask them. I had to ask my teachers. I did have mentors in my life in high school where I was participating in different like leadership roles. So they were guiding me at some point and explaining how to fill out the FAFSA. The FAFSA was just freaking crazy. I had to fill that
Yes.
out on my own with my parents having no clue what I was filling out. Like, hey, can you give me your tax information? Like, they're just freaking out. But I'm like, I need it and stuff like that. So it was definitely a journey, but I mean, it's difficult, but you just kind of figure it out. If you really want it, you're going to figure it out. So it wasn't easy getting to where I was now, but yeah, just kind of have to keep going and figure things out.
Yes, figure it out along the way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was also psych major, so I loved psychology and understanding why we do certain behaviors and learning about cognitive development and as a
Yeah.
educator, right, pedagogy. So, but early on, I knew I didn't want to do clinical psych. I didn't want to be a therapist
Hmm.
for many reasons, but I think it's important for anyone listening to realize that if you start in a major and you realize that the traditional route is something you don't want to do, don't panic because there are other jobs and other things that you can be doing outside
Hmm.
of therapy. We need therapists. Yes, we need bilingual therapists. And if that's your calling, do it. We need you, especially with mental health.
Hmm.
Um, support. However, it's also important to navigate whether that's really something that it's for you.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about a social science degree is that you can do so many things. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something in the sociology field. It doesn't have to be psychology. It doesn't have to just be
Right.
like criminal justice. You can apply it. You can apply those things anywhere you go, any jobs. So I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of the job postings nowadays they'll say like a social science degree. It doesn't specifically say psychology or stuff like that. Some do,
Right.
but yeah. So like she said, I did not decide to take the regular route. My first initial idea with my psychology degree was to pursue forensic psychology in the future, which I think is still very cool.
Yeah.
But there was a turning point in my life, an event that happened with my immediate family where like I just realized this is what I need to do, this is what I want to do, and I want to do it for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I decided to go the law route, and I hope that I can get my law degree soon. My hope is
Mm-hmm.
go back to school soon. So I am studying for the LSAT.
Right.
But yeah, so hopefully go to get my Juris Doctor instead of my PsyD or whatever the other
Yes.
situation could have been. Yes.
Yeah. I think psychology helps you with the law, with a law degree, because you're still dealing with people and how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a course in college about psychology and the law and how that
Mm-hmm.
operates. So I think that's really cool. And something that we need too, we need bilingual lawyers, right? With
Mm-hmm.
immigration law and supporting our communities that might not understand what's happening because they don't understand the law in English. But if you explain it in Spanish, they might understand it, or Brazilian Portuguese, or whatever their native language is, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really exciting. And how are you doing studying with the LSATs?
Yeah, no, I use a program online. So, I mean, it's hard because it's been a while since I've studied for anything just with school. So getting my brain back into that like mentality of you need to study for this because this exam is approaching. You need to be ready is kind of like, ugh. Because after a long day of work, I'm on the computer
Yeah,
all day, 8 hours a
right,
day on the computer, and I just don't want to come back home and be on the computer again.
right.
So it's kind of hard with my brain just being so tired at the end of the
Yes.
day. But yeah, definitely need to work harder because yeah, like it's getting here. The date.
It's coming. The date to take the exam is coming.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And like she mentioned about a social science degree, right? It gives you a lot of transferable skills from your undergrad experience into your professional life, or for your master's or your JD or your PhD program. And is there a specific area in law degree that you want to kind of work through?
Yeah, so I mean, I know there's not that many attorneys who are bilingual in family law. So like the thing that I've realized is like these are things that people need every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like crazy to think about it that way. Like there's always going to be a situation with immigration or just people finding themselves in an immigration situation.
Right.
Divorce, there's always people who will need some sort of help with divorce negotiations and so forth, coming to an agreement with the split, or like even just like custody and stuff like that. Like so law's like very big, it's just everywhere. But yeah,
Right,
like I know
right.
attorneys who speak Spanish and like we need more attorneys in family law. So I mean I think I'm just gonna venture out and see where I go, but my where I'm leaning more towards is immigration for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then definitely criminal defense. I think that would be really, really interesting to do. But yeah, immigration is where most of my passion leans towards. Just like I think I shared the story with you, right? When we first talked in like July.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
So Emily has had a lot of experiences, like she mentioned earlier in our chat, about why she decided to pursue psych, but then connected to law. So, do you want to expand a little bit more about that and share like a story? I know we personally talked about it offline, but for anyone listening.
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, college as a first generation is very difficult. I mean, I've lived with my parents this whole time basically, and you know how hard it is when you just have other responsibilities at home that you have to do on top of your homework and maybe helping take care of your younger siblings or your parents are working most of the time, so you have to like take your siblings to places. So it's definitely very hard. I know a
Yeah.
lot of friends who aren't necessarily a first generation student don't have other obligations besides school, but I've seen that a lot of first generation students do have that connection of, well, like yes, there's school, but our families don't. It's like it's yes, it's a priority, but we have other things at home we need to take care of as well. So navigating that is also very hard as a first gen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, one of the difficult times during my I guess my adventure, I guess I would say adventure
A journey.
way in college. I think we're kind of marked my journey. There we go. That's the word. The journey
Yeah.
in school was my junior year of college. And I remember it so vividly. It was literally it was the week prior to finals week. And so I woke up to a phone call, and it was a family member who was being detained by ICE, and they were being taken to Tacoma. But in my head, like, I've had these nightmares before. This was like one of my biggest fears, waking up and one of my family members being gone. And
Right.
so I woke up at like 6 a.m. to that phone call, and I was just like, is this a dream? So I like made nothing of it. I went back to bed, like, okay, like just a nightmare again. I went back to bed, and then I woke up and I was reflecting on that dream. And I went outside and I'm like, why is there work truck still here? Like, is this real? And I just freaked out. I went to my mom, and like we both started freaking out. And then we finally started getting calls from people that work with them. And so that's when like we like started putting it together, like, wow, this is actually real. I still went to school that morning. I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to make of it. It was just really crazy. I never thought like it would happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so I found myself like not being able, I was not mentally capable of anything. I could not focus. And I had to be studying for my finals. I would try studying for finals and I would just break down crying, freaking out, like, what can I do? And so I then reached out to the attorney that we had gotten for them. And I started working alongside the attorney. Given it was finals week, I was like, you know what, whatever. So I did speak to my
Mm-hmm.
professors. It was definitely very difficult because it's things that we're taught not to share with other people because we don't know who you can trust with that information. So it was
Right.
definitely very hard opening up to my professors and speaking to them about it, and hopefully them understanding that I'm struggling. I cannot focus for this exam. Like, my family member comes first. So
Mm-hmm.
that was very helpful. I did go to a private Christian school, so I think professors are very understanding there, which was really great. They helped me they worked with me, and I could rearrange my exams if I needed to. So I was working with the attorney. I did a lot of the paperwork for their application. I did a lot of getting the letters of support from other people from the community, just so they can see that this person has a good moral character and stuff like that. So that's where my immigration experience came from, where like filing the application and kind of putting it together, or helping it get put together. Um, and so like being able to do that because I spoke English, my family members don't really speak English that well. So
Right.
that felt good to be able to help them. And we were able to get them out of the detention center in a span of 2 weeks, which is really rare. 2 weeks is like, whoa, because normally you're in there for months.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. It was a crazy experience. Luckily, like, I didn't even need to move my exams. I only moved one exam, thanks to my professor. So I passed all my exams. We got my family member back, and it was just like finally, like, that nightmare was kind of gone. So that's when I was like, wow, like, I guess I really needed to go through this experience. I don't know. I just saw it as like, oh, God put me through this experience so I can help others maneuver through like
Mm-hmm.
that situation, I guess. And that's when I really opened my eyes, like, wow, like, there's people who wouldn't have had that. Maybe there's people who would have been just stuck in there, maybe not be able to afford an attorney or stuff like that. So I just kind of opened my eyes. I hope one day I can do like open up my own practice as well and kind of help people who can't really afford an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as for kind of my what I say, my passion for it came, I guess it grew bigger than it already was. I've always
Right.
advocated for it and spoken about it when I can, because I know so many people don't know much about how our immigration system works. We just see it as like I see the example of like, just get in line to, file this, blah, blah, but it's not that
Right.
easy. And so I actually interned at Catholic Charities in the immigration office, I guess I would say. So we have about 8 attorneys. It's a nonprofit, and we have like 5, 6 legal assistants. And I'm the baby, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool being so young, and everyone's just like, it just feels really cool. I'm 22, and everyone else is like about 26 and up, which is kind of like interesting. I get to learn from all these people,
Right.
and work with people who have more experience than me is always really cool, and I've learned a lot. And I actually landed a job opportunity with them before I graduated from school, which was like very rare. It's very rare to graduate with already a job waiting for you, which is really like, whoa, this is awesome.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so it's actually, I just hit a year of being at Catholic Charities now, which is super cool. I learned a lot about the immigration system, and then like, this is what I want to do, you know? So yeah, it's kind of where it came to be and where my passion grew and why I decided to take the path I decided to take and
Hmm.
hopefully pursue that degree soon. It's kind of hard now that I've been working for a year. It's kind of hard going back to that school, thinking about school and homework again, you know?
Yes.
It's always the
It's a
homework. Like
different
I
type
love
of work.
learning. Yeah, I love learning, but just the homework sometimes. It's just so
Yes.
much. Yeah, and then I think I've always worked when I was in school. I always had two
Mhm.
jobs. I had two jobs when I was in school. And I was doing full time. I was doing 16 credits, 18 credits, but I don't know, I like staying busy.
Yes.
But so I guess like I know I'm gonna have to work while I'm pursuing my degree, so hopefully that comes in handy. But yeah, that's kind of where I am. And I've just been it's been really hard with COVID. I'm trying to search for new opportunities. I was mentioning to the Alicia that I finally found like I got an interview finally for an immigration case manager, which I'm really stoked about because it is for like the government, which is really cool.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'll get to be working more in the field, which is super exciting. So I'm just hoping I get this position. It'll be really good. But yeah, so I'm stoked. We'll see. We'll see where I end up, but I'm excited.
Yes, Emily has so many great different pinpoints in your journey that really influence where you are now and how you're moving forward in what you're learning. And one thing I
Hmm.
want to highlight that you said is how first generation and children of immigrants have uh, kind of these unspoken responsibilities that a lot of people may not know about, right? So, are you the firstborn?
I'm the firstborn. Yeah, I only have one
Yeah.
younger sibling. Hmm.
So that's a whole different like category of responsibility. And then you're a firstborn like woman, so you're that's a
Hmm.
whole other like category of like
Yeah.
responsibility and taking care of like maybe your elders and your grandparents if they're with you and your younger siblings,
Hmm.
or and there's just a lot of expectations put on you, that's culturally, that's socially, and then you're also navigating school. So
Yeah.
that's one of the other reasons I started this kind of podcast, is so we can have these conversations and kind of talk through the different layers and the nuances of that and how that affects our collegiate experience. That really affects our experiences
Hmm.
because, like you mentioned in your story about your family member who had to deal with a legal case while you were in college, really affects you mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and you're trying to take final exams, and then you have your classmates who are just worrying about school, which is great. They have that privilege, but then it makes you think of like, well, how do I navigate? How do I perform at that level too if I'm also dealing with all this other stuff?
Hmm.
So, if you're listening and you're first gen and you're identifying with Emily's story and my story, know that you're not alone in this, that there's actually a lot of us who have to deal with this in college. Um, and in one way it makes us uh, it helps us persevere and it gives us resiliency, um, but at the same time it's like, oh man, this is a lot of work.
No, yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think it's really just like going through so many tough experiences and never having it easy. It just makes me work harder. And I'm just like, wow, I really went through that. Like, I can do this.
Yes.
Like, if I really want something, I'm gonna get it. Like, I've gone through so much, and I'm just like, no, I've been through worse. I
Yep.
can do this. No, yeah,
Yes.
but definitely, I'm like, I was thinking about something when you were mentioning, just like all the other responsibilities we have at home, but it kind of just flew away from me. I was like, what was I gonna say?
It'll come back, it'll come back.
Yeah, I'll think about
uh,
it.
and another thing that we share that we love is traveling. We both studied abroad. I studied abroad in Spain and Australia, and then did the Fulbright grant in Brazil. So we share that also. Can you talk us through your study abroad experiences? I know I mentioned France, Thailand, and Cambodia.
Mhm.
Um, but is it through, did you do it through your university or through like another program?
Yeah, so basically I did it through my university. I did all those things through my university. So at George Fox, they do have a study abroad, it's called Juniors Abroad. So your junior year,
Oh, okay.
they have all different kinds of trips aligned, and you kind of just sign up. So I chose the Cambodia and Thailand trip, and most of my friends did, and we went together, and it was super cool. So it was like we learned a little bit about the language, we learned about the culture, we learned
Hmm.
about the food, we went to different events while we were over there. But yeah, so it was more like studied, but we studied about the culture, language, and so forth at our
Hmm.
school. And then we took the trip, and we had like a tour guide and explaining everything, the statues, the different temples and stuff like that. So that one wasn't super like I'm studying abroad in the country. We were learning about it as we went and applying things that we had learned prior to that trip. But that
Right.
one was more like a fun traveling experience that like who I never thought I would have gone, to any of those countries, which was insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool. I definitely want to go back to Thailand. If you've never heard of the White Temple, oh my gosh, it's freaking gorgeous. It's so cool. Definitely
Ooh.
recommend looking and visit and the beaches. Yes, the White Temple. It's just like it's basically what it is, a white temple, but it's just
Yeah.
so shiny and the details just crazy. Yeah, whoever I don't remember what the name of the person who created it, but it's really cool to see. That was one of my favorite places in Thailand and the beach.
Yes. The
Um,
beaches.
no, yes, it's beautiful. It's crazy. And it's really inexpensive for us to go to Thailand. It's
Oh, really?
inexpensive. It's yeah, definitely if you're young, I see that Thailand is definitely like a recommendation. I see it all the time because it's cheap for us to go to Thailand. So if you ever get to go, I totally recommend. And Cambodia, they're both really beautiful.
Yes,
Super
when
beautiful.
outside is open again.
No, yes, for real. I miss traveling so much.
Yes.
And then France. France was actually where I studied. So
Okay.
I started learning French when I was in high school, but in high school, I mean, I feel like you don't really learn the language or you don't really learn it. Not really. You kind of just memorize. It's just memorization for the exam in
Hmm.
high school, I feel like. So what I think high school helped me was just like learning to understand it more than anything. And then once I got to college, I took 2 years of French in college. And then I took a break from it. And then I did my study abroad in France a year later, which was crazy because I had not practiced French in like a year or anything, which was insane. I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm really going to do this. Like, I really wanted my minor. So I was like, oh my God, am I really going to do this? This is crazy. Yeah. But being abroad in France for 3 months, living by myself and just a random country, different language, it was so cool. It was the best thing I've done. And one of the best things I've done in my life. Oh my gosh. Met so many people. I was around the language 24/7. That's where I learned the most French. That's where I became comfortable speaking French.
Hmm.
Um, it was hard, but I did it after not practicing for the longest time. I made it to one of the highest levels and I was really proud of myself.
Yes.
So I got my minor and it was so cool. And how I explain like studying abroad, if you ever get the chance, like definitely try and do it. I know it can be really expensive, but you will not
Right.
regret it. You will not regret studying abroad. It's kind of I think that's where most of my self growth came from because
Mm.
I was this like I mean, I wasn't super confident back then. I didn't really speak up, not too much. Like, yes, I had my voice, but I was just too scared to speak up. But then
Right.
when I went over there, like I just got to know myself more personally. I lived by myself. I was with myself like all the time compared to here where I live with my family members still. There's
Right.
always noise, something going on. I never really sit with my thoughts. But being
Yeah.
abroad, wow, like I grew so much as a person. I did things I would have never thought I would do. I spoke up for things I never thought I would do. I'm like as bad as it sounds, I normally like I get taken advantage of just because I'm so nice. But I've learned where to cut, like draw the line.
Right. Set
Um,
boundaries.
yes, because I am very nice and I don't like being mean to people. But no, yeah,
Right.
I think when you're abroad, you get to learn who you really are outside of your comfort zone, outside of
Hmm.
your normal setting, which is just an
Right.
experience like, whoa, you will not come back the same person. I guarantee you.
Yes.
It doesn't, like, if you're over there for at least a month, I think it has to be at least a month for you to
Yes.
get like comfortable with who you really are outside of your setting and with no one you really know in the area. It just really helped me a lot. It's just like one of the best experiences, like I said.
Yeah, absolutely. Study abroad really shifts your perspective. It really pulls on you to
Hmm.
be independent. And especially growing up Latinas, right? We live with our family members. We're very interconnected, and maybe there aren't that many boundaries. And there's responsibility to be like the first in your family to go to college and the oldest daughter.
Hmm.
So when you get removed from that, you can finally figure out
Oh
how do
my
you want to
gosh.
operate on your own as an autonomous individual
Yes.
without maybe this pressure around you. And I don't want to
Hmm.
say that it's negative or positive, it just is, right? Like that's just the way we
Yeah.
grow up in many ways. And it's not to knock our family or anything, it's just to explain that
Hmm.
that's how we navigate, right? So when you're given the opportunity to go abroad, you can see yourself outside of that. And like you said, sit with your thoughts
Yeah.
and just like figure out how do you want to navigate the world? How do you want to show up? And then you're stretched and put outside of your comfort zone. So you really get to
Hmm.
learn how you want to show up and then set those boundaries, right? You're like, oh, wait a minute, like that was not
Yeah.
okay. Or how do I how do I want to live my life, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I like how you worded that. Definitely. And you made me remember what I was going to say before when I was like, what was I going to say? Because we were speaking about all the pressure, all the stress that comes from our family members because they've never experienced going to school and they find it to be so easy. And I know, like, for everyone listening and who's still in school, and you're just like, my gosh, my parents are like saying this and they give me such a hard time. My parents did that all the time. They were always like, not to like, like shut them down or anything, but it is
Yeah,
very
we're
stressful.
we're processing the experience. It's not to
Yeah,
it's not to bash our parents or bash
yeah,
the
for sure.
family. It's just to like be true and honest to like our lived
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah, my parents would always be like, I don't understand how you're not done with your homework yet. Like, why are you complaining? It's not hard. Blah, blah, blah. At your age, I would do this. When they start comparing their
I
experiences to yours, oh my gosh, it's like it's not the same thing. In their head, it's superior, but it's just like it's just
it's
different. You
different.
can't
It's a
compare them.
different hard.
And it's just, yeah, and it's just something you can't explain to them, I guess. So it's just like
Mhm.
you kind of just have to learn to ignore those comments. Before I would like let that really get to my head and I would feel so bad about myself. And just because they were saying those comments, I felt like they weren't satisfied with what I've accomplished. But once I've like
Mhm.
really like reflected, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've done all of this at my age. Like what? So
What? Yes, I'm
yeah,
powerful. Yes,
excuse
I'm
me.
good. What?
Yeah, so
Let's
it
read
all
that
starts with
resume again.
you. It all starts with you, and it took me a while. Like I said, I wasn't as confident. I used
Mhm.
to not be a public speaker. I love public speaking now. I don't haven't mentioned this on here yet, but I was the commencement speaker at my like all white school for my graduation. Like, right?
Yes.
The president, I went up to the president. I told him I have a story I want to share at graduation. Do you mind giving me like sparing some time, for me, and I'll read it to you? And he approved. And I was just like, wow, I really did that.
Yes, I
So
really
it's
did
like,
that.
yeah. So like I said, if you really want something, like go for it. It doesn't hurt to try. Um, but yes, once you know how to appreciate it yourself, be satisfied yourself, and not be doing things for other people, but just for your satisfaction, that's when you'll like bloom. I feel like it took me a while. I was always looking for the approval of my parents or other people, but it really just starts with you. And that's the best
Mhm.
thing.
Absolutely. Mic drop.
Hmm.
Yes, it starts with you. and you have to navigate and figure out what it is that makes you excited about work or excited about college or excited about life in general, and kind of teasing away from that, or trying to not look for external validation, because we're going to look for it for the rest of your life and you're never going to get it, because that's just the nature of life. So if you're happy with you and who you are and how you navigate, then that's half the battle, I think, in growing up in many ways.
For sure.
Yes, I love it. Well, since we're on the topic of talking about ourselves and like being happy with how we accomplish things and honoring that, I think that is a great place to kind of talk through resume writing, because resume writing is sitting with yourself and what you've done and what you want to accomplish, and being happy and okay with it. And I think this is where students get really scared to write their resume and don't want to do it and have a roadblock, because they're scared to come up with, I'm not enough, or I haven't made my parents proud enough, or I haven't done what I said I was going to do, without realizing that you probably have 3 to 5 pages of accomplishments or accolades that you can use to apply to a job or a master's program or whatever. So this is kind of where the transition to like our coaching session comes in, is like you mentioned from your experience of figuring out, okay, I'm happy with what I'm doing and it's enough, right? It's coming to a point that I'm enough for the job I'm applying for. I'm enough for a legal degree. I'm enough for a master's and a PhD program. And getting to that point is a tough part of like resume writing and personal statements and all that stuff. And I mentioned earlier on the call to everyone listening that we're going to try a hybrid like coaching resume review session with Emily. And now that we've heard her lived experiences and her life and what she's all about, how do we put that on paper, right? Because we have to transition from our experiences to, all right, now I have to submit this application, right? So before we dive into the written part of your resume, do you have any questions right off the bat, or any thoughts? Or what's the first thing that comes to mind when applying to a job?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, I'm just like, what all do they require? Yeah, basically the first thing that comes to mind is always the qualifications. Obviously, you have to look at the qualifications before you apply. I have applied to jobs that I don't necessarily meet like the experience requirement, which is very difficult coming out from graduation and only having like little experience. I mean, luckily I took basically my gap and have a year experience worth what would I say? A year's experience, I guess. With Catholic Charities, and then sometimes in my application I'll say I also interned for them for about 4 months prior to getting this job. While I probably don't meet your qualifications for experience, I believe that all the coursework I did in college, as well as my prior experiences, like equal this experience, basically. So sometimes I'll try and incorporate that when I'm just like, you know what, it won't hurt to try. So
exactly, it won't hurt to try and apply. You never know. And it's also about putting not only your professional experience from graduating and internship, but also putting your undergraduate coursework and any leadership experiences you had in undergrad. Really combines everything and is like, I am an ideal candidate for this. And you don't have to meet 100% of the requirements, because then what are you going to learn in the job, right?
Yeah.
The job you're applying to, something new, should be a stretch goal, should be something that's going to push you outside of your comfort zone and really push you to expand your experiences. So you actually don't have to have all the qualifications, and you don't have to meet all the expectations that are on the job description. And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up, especially Latino women, because we think we have to meet 99.9% of the requirements. to get it,
Mm-hmm.
whereas studies show that people or white men only meet 50% of the requirement and they still apply.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening, apply.
Apply.
Try it
Do it.
out. Just do it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have
Honestly,
questions, obviously reach out to us.
yes. I've been applying like crazy to new jobs because I just want to do something new, and now that I have a year's worth of experience, might as well kind of
Right.
branch out. I feel like it's time to branch out to somewhere else. But during COVID, wow, it's been crazy. Like applying to a job, it's been so
Yes,
hard.
yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was telling Alicia, I finally landed an interview, so I'm
Yeah.
excited. Yeah, so we'll see.
Cheers. Yeah,
Seriously, oh
we
my
should
gosh. So,
cheers.
yes, cheers to new experience.
Yes, new experiences,
Yeah.
interviews,
Hmm.
applications, and make it fun. Like, have a good time because it's like, yes, I'm a bad bitch. I can apply to this job. I have these experiences, and
Seriously.
try it out. Try it out and see what
I've been
happens.
saying that so much.
Put
I've been
on
saying that
some
so much. Oh my gosh.
Beyonce to hype you up.
No, seriously. Oh gosh, I love saying that. I feel like it wasn't until I started saying that I was just like, yep, that's how confident I am.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and
like
that's
this job.
okay.
Yeah, this job. So it's an immigration case manager. And this job basically, like, I think it was 2 years and more. Yeah, 2+ years of experience. But I've only had like one in like 5 months, I think, of
Mhm.
experience. And I was like what I said like prior to this, I was like, I
Right.
don't meet your requirements necessarily, but I have a year's worth of experience plus interning here, blah, 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 my coursework. And I'm sure, like it all adds up. Like I'm the qualified candidate you need. And I got my interview, so I mean, you never know. Like
You never
I'm really
know.
excited. I'm stoked.
Yes. That's awesome.
Yes, it'll be
So
a
if you're
good foot in the door.
listening, yes, a good foot in the door, a good experience. And even if you don't get the job,
Mhm.
not you specifically, because you're going to get the job, but
Oh
if
yes.
you're, yes, we're putting out that good energy for you.
Claiming it,
Um,
claiming it.
claiming it right now. Anyone listening, if you applied to a job and you have an interview, claim it right now. It's yours. We're rooting for you.
Hmm.
Um, and the interview is experience. The job application
Yes.
process is experience. Writing that resume, cover letter, having that phone call or that Zoom interview
Hmm.
now, because I don't know if people are doing in-person interviews,
Yeah.
but it's it's all part of the learning process.
Hmm.
So one thing that I love to do with students is to remind them to have fun because I know it's stressful. I know we need a job. I know we're dealing with hard times now in COVID. However, we also can have fun with it, right? Put some good music on while you're writing your resume. Get in a good energy field and look at your accomplishments and be like, "Yes, I'm a bad bitch. I could do this."
I did that, honey.
Put some
Oh, seriously.
Meg the Stallion,
Oh my God,
um,
yes.
Beyonce,
Being good, I'm a
I,
bad bitch.
Icy
That
Girl.
song.
What's her name? Swati,
Swally,
um,
Swally, something like
Swally.
that. I
So
don't
she's
remember.
great. I'll create a playlist and I'll post it for you
Yeah,
all.
seriously. Yeah.
um,
Also another thing, like those interviews or like jobs that you applied for can later even just be brought up in questions for other interviews. Like for
right,
example, I applied for a position for Suzanne, like she's a Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici, and I was there were two finalists, me and some other girl. And like I made it that far. So like I use that as an example sometimes when they ask me questions.
right.
So while you might have not got a job, you made it that far in an interview for something that big, just kind of cool. But yeah.
Exactly. And you can use those questions to prepare you and use that experience and even stay in touch with those people, right? The
Hmm.
the HR manager or the HR recruiter, those are people that you can still build a relationship with. Even though you may not have gotten a role or you didn't move on, you can ask them follow-up questions. Sometimes they won't answer, sometimes they'll ghost
Hmm.
you. However, if
True.
it's someone if it's someone who is actually actively talking to you, build that relationship with them. Find them on LinkedIn, talk to them, and a month or two from now or a year from now, you can still reach out if you're still interested in the company or federal government department or whatever you're interested in, you can always reach out to them and say, hey, I interviewed with you last year. I made it to the interview round. Is there anything open now? Do you think I would be more qualified now with a year or two experience? The fact that someone got an interview, like you, for example, tells me that you have a door opened. You have access to that department or that community or that company. So you should, not only you, but anyone listening should use that to their advantage for future opportunities, right?
When I don't, for example, that one, when I didn't get that position, it was kind of like it was an internship with her at her office. So she's one of the congresswomen in Oregon. She's well known. So basically, like when they told me I didn't get the position, I emailed them back and I asked, hey, thank you so much for letting me know and giving me the opportunity to be interviewed. Do you have any like tips for the future, stuff like that? Or is there anything I can improve on? Is there any other experience I can acquire before I apply for something similar again? And yeah, like you said, sometimes they answer or they'll ghost you. But yeah, it always looks good though to do that.
Yes, absolutely. And in a month or two from now, if you write to them again, they'll be like, and they respond, they'll say, oh, she did write to us. Oh, she has been in communication, and you're on their mind. And if they ghost you, my friends, it's not about you. Don't take it personally. I know it sucks. And I've been there where I've been ghosted so many times. And it's just like, what? I just want to help. I just want a job. Like, why are you ghosting me? Yeah. But honestly, it's probably something internal. They don't have the time. They have too many things they have to do. Sometimes HR professionals are overworked and have 3 different hats that they're doing. I mean, 3 different hats they carry as a professional. So I know it sucks and it hurts, like your soul, your ego, right? But it's really not about you, my friends. It's really not. It has nothing to do with your expertise or your ability to do the job. If they ghost you, it's like, all right, they didn't have the time. Let's keep it moving. Like, please don't go down a spiral and don't go down like a rabbit hole of like, I'm not good enough, because you are good enough.
No, I was actually ghosted really bad like recently. It was crazy. So as I've been looking for a new job, my friend's aunt, she's actually a family law attorney, and he reached out to her. Well, he let me know first that she was looking for someone to work for her, and then I finally connected with her. I called her. We really like clicked. I had a phone interview, and then I met with her in person. This was still during like pre-COVID. I guess it wasn't that bad. So like I went in with my mask and I spoke to her, and she really liked me. Like we really clicked. And we started talking about what my starting wage was going to be, when I was going to start. And I was supposed to start near the end of last year, so around November. That's when we had agreed. So I can put in, like, let them know at my job where I actually am still at. So that way I wouldn't have any problems. And yeah, she ended up, like, I would reach out to her when I was getting close to the date. I would email her. I would call her office. I would call her. I had her personal cell phone number. But I would do this like every week. I would reach her out in some kind of way, and ghosted. She never got back to me. And it's very unprofessional on her end because she's an attorney.
Yeah.
And why would you make someone, first of all, why waste your own time? Why would you lead someone on like that? So I was like very annoyed, like upset, because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to start a new job, and then ghosted. Yeah. So I'm just like, well, your loss, honey. Moving on to the bigger and better things.
Yes, moving on. Exactly. Moving on.
Seriously,
if you're ghosted at that level, it's like, all right, that's a clear indication that that's someone you may not want to work with, because they are not respecting your time and they're not being transparent, right? We know people are going through things, so that's okay if you're going through something, but be transparent, right? And that's also clear indication that that might not be the place for you to work at. So if you're ghosted, it does suck, but also the silver lining is that that might not have been the right place for you anyways.
Yeah.
So
I still think about it.
Yeah, I
I'm
do
just
too.
like, one quick message, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I've been
It's crazy.
where they asked me to email them, so I email them and then they never
Exactly.
respond, or the assistant
Mm-hmm.
responds when the vice president said they were going to write to me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just so interesting. So now a couple years later, I'm reflecting on it and I say, well, clearly I would not have really thrived in that environment because things went down and they didn't align with my values or didn't align how I want to show up in the workplace. So it
Mm-hmm.
ended up being like a blessing in disguise. So sometimes we
Yeah.
have to trust the process and trust the journey and trust that everything is working out in our favor. And you can tap into, if you're religious, into whatever faith you have, spirituality, the stars, the
Mm-hmm.
moon, the trees, like Mother Nature or God, or however you identify, right? Something greater is operating, and we have to trust that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. So after processing all of that, do you have any particular questions about your resume that you want to ask, or any general
Mhm.
feedback?
Well, I think one thing I'm always like questioning. So on my resume, I don't have all my experiences on it. I
Mm-hmm.
tend to put experiences that are more professional now that I have more professional experiences that align with the job I am applying for. So like I do have a resume where it has all of those experiences, but then I have a resume, like I added that resume for this certain job. And then if they ask about other things, oh, I actually worked here when I was younger, that's not on my resume, but you know, or sometimes you can also just split your resume with like, what's the word? I'm trying to think of the little phrase I would put at the top of it. Basically just saying related experiences that apply to this job. Other. So I would do that
Right.
before, but I was just like, it's too long. I just started kind of turning in like a resume that's just related to the job I am applying for. So I don't know what you recommend to do. That's always just
Mm-hmm.
one of the questions I'm pondering on when I apply for a job. Like, do I really need to include all these 10 different jobs I've had that don't really relate to this job? Or I don't know.
Yes, that's a great question and a common question. I think the two-part kind of answer is that yes, you can only put the job experiences that relate to the job that you're applying to, and the rest could go on your cover letter if it connects to that job, if the
Mm-hmm.
company's asking for a cover letter. Or you can save those experiences, like you mentioned, and talk about it in an interview, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you, like you mentioned, you can say, this is not on my resume, but I do have this lived experience that connects to this job or that question, and you
Mm-hmm.
can draw on that as well. Because part of the strategy with the resume is you want to get through the online system and you want to get through the door, right? You want to get the application to be printed so that an HR person can read it. So
Yeah.
the experiences have to really match the job description. So I think that's a great way to do it. Like you said, just
Mm-hmm.
include what matches that job description, and then the rest you put in your cover letter or you talk about it in your interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to have all those experiences at least on one resume, like your master resume,
Yeah.
that you can create. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have one, that's okay. You have time to do it. You can do it, start today, and create
Yeah.
like your master resume.
I mean, when I first like coming out of graduation, obviously, like I didn't really have professional experiences besides where I've interned.
Right.
So, like, include those internships on there. And then if you're working at a fast food restaurant, like, there's skills that you get from that place
Absolutely.
that will help you for the future. So, don't be discouraged when like I said, I got my job because I interned there prior to it, and they know that I knew how to work their system, that I've seen how the immigration law works and the kind of work that they do. And so just having that kind of knowledge and the background knowledge of how their company works was a foot in the door. Even though my prior experiences was, I was a Spanish teacher assistant in college. I worked for
Mhm.
our eating area in college, but I was a team leader. So that makes it
Right.
like, oh, she has leadership.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
So it's just like, put those things on your resume. And then like also I remember when I applied for this job, um, I would work as a roofer with my dad in the summer. So I would be on those roofs. I was the only girl up there, and like I'm a hard worker, and that's what they see, you know?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Add
put those things on
everything.
your resume. Yeah. It's okay coming out from like graduation. You literally just graduated. Like school is your life during those times. If you get to
Right.
work, then put those things on your resume. If you interned, if you were a mentor for someone, yeah,
Mhm.
like put those things on there.
Yeah, and if you take your abuelita to the doctors or your parents and you are interpreting, you are translating
Yeah,
documents, and so you put that on
seriously.
your resume. You are a professional
No.
interpreter.
Seriously, oh my gosh. All those memes of like, it's like a little kid crying. It's like a little like kid crying, and they're like, when you're 3 and your parents are yelling at you because they can't translate this document, this official document. I'm like, oh my gosh, story of my life. Oh gosh.
Yes,
Like,
I
even
love
right
those
now,
memes.
yeah, my Spanish, thank God, I go to Spanish like every to Spanish. I go to Mexico every I go to Mexico every year. Um, and I think that really helped me with my Spanish for sure. And I do a lot of translating, and I speak to so many Hispanics at my job all the time, and that really helped
Mhm.
my Spanish. And just like my translating has gotten really good for interpreting.
Yes,
But like I said, like other obligations as a first generation, translating's a big one, interpreting's a big one.
yes.
So like my parents just bought a new house, so we're moving from here soon, and like all those documents that they have to sign and stuff for like, yeah,
All the
who's translating
legalese.
that when she has time? Me. On top of other things I have to do. I'm just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it comes with the being the oldest kid, I guess.
Yes, it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So another thing I wanted to mention about your resume is
Hmm.
your resume that's a master resume can be 5 to 10 pages. It doesn't matter because that's not the one you submit, but the one that you submit could be 1 to 2 pages depending on
Hmm.
where you're at in your career. Generally, from 0 to 5 years, I say 1 page. And then if you're 5 and above, 2 pages. But sometimes if you're making a big jump to like from an entry level position to like a program manager or director and you need to show more skills, 2 pages is acceptable. um, so but also don't try to fill it with fluff, right? It's if it genuinely matches, yes, you can do that.
Hmm.
And another thing, I was reviewing what you sent me earlier. And if you're listening, um, I'm going to give general feedback since I'm not going to show her resume for privacy purposes. So, really quickly, the first thing is make sure if you're editing your resume, not only you, Emily, but anyone listening, for your margins to be at least zero point 0.5. So you have more space to really write out what you're saying. So you don't have so much like dead white space on the left or the right. Um, so you give yourself more room to write out bullet points, right? Because one
Hmm.
bullet point matters when you're completing your resume.
Yeah, for those
And
bullet points, do you
then
recommend to be short on those bullet points, or do you recommend to like, I don't know, because supposedly resume is not supposed to be like full on sentences.
exactly, not full on sentences. I recommend just one bullet, one line.
Yeah.
Um, and what was you use a lot of great action verbs and action words, so that's great. So if you're listening, make sure you're using those action verbs, and if it's a job in the past, make sure it's in the past, right? I trained, I
Hmm.
helped, I supported. But if you're talking about your job that you're doing now, obviously the present tense. And then I don't know, I can't tell since it's a PDF, but the font should be either, depending on how many jobs you have, or maybe 10.5 or 11 can use, so you have more room to add more jobs experiences. And I also generally say 3 to 5 bullet points per job. So
Okay.
the most important job description and experiences you had in that job or that volunteer experience or that leadership role would go at the top. And then I would add as much quantifiable evidence as you can, right? So if you were a team leader, how many people were you in a team with? Or how many people did you manage? Or how many people did you mentor? Or how many presentations did you give for a group project? Or how many presentations you had to give at a job? Like, for example, if you're working in marketing, sometimes you have to do like sales pitches. How many sales pitches have you done? Or for immigration law, how many cases have you reviewed? How many clients have you seen in a week, right? All those quantifiable evidences will give the company and the HR manager and the hiring people an idea of the workload that you can handle, right?
Did I don't know if I did. I don't think I did. I can't remember if I included like handling over something cases at a time. I don't know if I ever did, if I did include that.
No, I don't see it here. So that's something I would add. As you're editing it, I would add that. And then something that you can put on sometimes on job descriptions, they let you put references in the system. You don't necessarily need those on the resume. And you don't have to put references upon request either, because that they know that if they need a reference, they can ask you. So that's kind of like an unspoken truth already in the application process. So I would just say that so you have it handy for you personally, but you don't need to put on your resume. So those are kind of the top three things that I would review and kind of edit when you're applying to other jobs in the future, right? I mean, we know this resume worked because you have an interview. So you have the experiences. It's a matter of making it even stronger and even tighter.
Yeah, and I can add, well, maybe another experience rather than the references.
Right, exactly. So that space that takes up the references, you can add a whole other experience, and that'll make it even stronger for sure.
Yeah, and then what would you say then for adding, like, I think in mine I just added under my school. I think that's where I put my other extra things that I would do that stand out, I guess. I don't know if that's a good way to do it for like studying abroad and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. You can put that under your education because that matches your undergrad experience. That's fine. Yes. I would just double check the font so you have more space and give yourself more room. But other than that, any other questions?
I don't think so. You did mention personal statement. I remember I sat down with like a career coach in college. So for personal statements, basically using the language that is in the job description to form your personal statement is always a good way to go. Same with like if you need to write a cover letter, using that same language from the job description. Good tips that I've learned.
Yes, that's great.
So yeah,
I think if you're listening, a personal statement is like a little paragraph that explains who you are and gives more depth to your experiences. And sometimes it's called objective as well.
Yes.
So that's a very personal decision. A lot of people teach to include it, and a lot of people teach to not include it. So that is a personal preference to include it or not. Because sometimes that personal statement, you can use that for your cover letter. You don't necessarily need it on your resume. However, a good strategy is if someone does not ask you for a cover letter, then it might be a good idea to keep the personal statement and the objective. But if a company or an organization asks you for a cover letter, then take it off the resume and put it in the cover letter. So then you also have more room on your resume to add another experience. but that's really a
Like,
case by case basis, and it really depends on your personal preference.
I mean, like I can read mine. Do you want me to read mine? I'm like,
It's
I
up to
always
you, yeah,
adjust
if you
it.
want to.
I always adjust mine. I'm like, I just opened my resume. I was like, what is it? I always adjust it a little bit to make it more relatable to the
Hmm.
job, or just like at least
Right.
change kind of the wording sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I think this is for the last one I applied for. I said, I am a high achiever and a lifelong learner who is empathetic, friendly, positive, and adaptable, even in challenging situations. As a bicultural and bilingual individual, my mission is to bring open dialogue and connectedness to diverse groups of individuals by utilizing my skills of innovation and communication. One of my greatest passions is to support, guide, and ensure equality as well as justice to those I come across. So with my job, or the job I applied for,
Yeah.
yeah, along the lines.
I think that works. Did that job ask for a cover letter?
Yes, they did.
They did. Okay.
And
So,
normally, like for my cover letters, I've been writing so many cover letters. Like I said, I've applied for like 7 jobs in the past month or so. It's been
yes.
crazy. So I'm excited. That's why I'm like so excited finally. But yeah, for my cover letters, I always like this time I took a different route for my cover letter. I think that's what really helped probably land a interview just because it was different. It wasn't like I'm qualified for this job because of this, blah blah blah. Blah. I just like I shared a personal story and I connected I can't say connected today. Connected it to that story and it just kind of tied everything together. So yeah, I think that's what helped. So I looked up
Yeah, that
different ways to
works.
draw attention to my cover letter, just because I thought they were
Right.
boring. So I was like, I'm gonna try something new this time, and it sounded. I like
Yeah.
how it turned out.
Yes, it worked.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, any last words of advice to any students listening that identify as first gen, Latina, who
hmm
are interested in immigration, as we wrap up our interview slash
Yeah.
coaching session today?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always like support and try and motivate people of color, first generation students to go to school. I know it's very hard. And I know when I was in middle school, there was, even in high school, there's teachers that would always give like some sort of different treatment to kids of color or just different or just bicultural, I guess. Just because we're not seen as the smartest or I don't know, just like these stereotypes, right? So there was always stereotypes throughout growing up where they said, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not capable of this, you don't perform as well as the white students in our school, blah, blah. And they would give them modified homework, and it's just like from there on, I was like, nah, not for me. Like, no, I would always be like, why do you guys like let them, treat you like that? You're not, no, you're literally just like accommodating them. You're supposed to outperform that stereotype. So ever since then,
Right.
that's like literally why I'm like I advocate for students to just try and freaking prove them wrong. That's been
Yeah.
my story, like proving people wrong. I would have never thought I would have graduated from George Fox University, like an all white Christian school, basically. Speak at my commencement as a Latina woman at an all white school in front of, it was just insane. So, literally, just like don't settle for less. Don't let people tell you you're not capable. You are capable. It's all in your head. Um, but yeah, don't let people tell you what you can and can't do. It all starts with you, like we said previously. Seriously.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then also in the law field, I mean, like there's not that many Hispanics, I guess, pursuing it, especially Latina women or women in general. So
Right.
I think that's why I'm so hungry for that degree. Like I'm gonna get it, and I think you should have that same kind of hunger and change change the idea people have of first generation students, people of color, people who are bicultural, um, people who identify as a woman, Latinas. As Latinas, we have there's so much machismo in our culture that we just need to break. And I always speak up for it. I don't let my uncles, my dad sometimes. We go at it. I'm just like, no, not today, honey. This is
Yeah.
different like, generation. So yeah,
Yes,
literally.
yes.
Um, I'm like, I just looked at my graduation cap because I have it right here. Wait, I'm like, I'll show
Yeah,
you it. I don't know if you'll be
all
able to
the
see it in the video.
emotions.
Yeah, so like this was my grad cap from this one. So it says this, it says, a veces lloré, a veces dudé, pero nunca me rajé.
I
Yeah, so
love
like literally, get
that.
it done, girls, get it done, sister. Guys,
Get it done,
get it done.
amigas.
Seriously, prove them wrong. Like I live for it. That's literally my story, proving people wrong. Don't let people think less
Yes,
of you.
exactly. It starts with you. Do you
Seriously.
show up authentically? We are here to support you and
hmm
hopefully motivate you after listening in on this chat.
Yes, yeah, and I think I don't know if you're gonna share my well, I put my Instagram down. Yeah, so definitely like if you share my Instagram, it's Emmy,
Yes, I
so
will.
EMI underscore Lara 05. Definitely follow me and we can get in touch, connected, and go from there. I love hearing people's stories and giving them tips.
Yes, absolutely. I will put all of Emily's contact information, Instagram, LinkedIn in the show notes.
Yeah.
So if you want to connect with her, if you're in the Oregon, West Coast area, or if you have questions about law school or any questions about her lived experiences, reach out to her.
Yeah.
And I will share all that contact in the show notes. And make sure you let us know what you liked about this episode. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us some 5 stars.
Amen.
And thank you so much, Emily, for chatting with me today. I hope you all felt inspired, motivated, and ready to seize the college world and also the job application process.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having
Gracias.
me.
Of course. Wow, my friends, we made it to the end of another amazing episode. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something, please make sure that you rate, review, subscribe, and let us know your biggest takeaway from today's episode and commentary on your biggest learning. If you would like more information about the person that I interviewed and the guest, make sure you check out the show notes where all the information will be there on how to reach them, learn more about their work. And if you would like to work with me, please check out the website www.deliciaalarcon.com/services, and that's where you will learn how we can work together. You can add me on Instagram, Delicia D. Alarcon, where we can chat and connect that way as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and cheers to the next one. Again, I'm Delicia, your host for College and Career Coffee Chats, or your resident hype tia. Until next time, my friends, cheers.